Okay, we are live. Hello.
Hello.
Hi, Nelly.
Hi. Ninjani.
Siapila, how are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay, so we're a bit early, so I think people are still waiting for the 5 o'clock one, but yeah, the bus waits for no one. We'll just go. So we want to share a bit on our journey to writing. Mostly if there's someone out there who has an idea, who has a story to tell, but they don't know how to tell it, whether they want to get a publisher, whether they want to self-publish. This is just a podcast which we hope will help them in their writing journey. So I'm only going to focus, let me silence my phone. Okay, so I'm only going to focus on 3 things because writing is like the whole publishing is a whole long process. So I cannot go through everything right now. Esther, but see, nearly we're only seeing your hair. No, that is the only point
That's
where
the only. If I show my face, they won't hear me. They won't hear me.
Okay, okay, so basically, I'm going to look at conceptualization. When you have a concept, how do you go about expanding on that concept? Or if you have an idea, how do you go about changing that idea from just an idea to an actual story that can be read and enjoyed by people? And then I'm also going to talk about a book title. What is in a book title? How important is it to choose an adequate book title? What do you need? And lastly, the writing process. I'm going to share my process, and then I'm hoping Nelly will also share hers. And then, basically, this is our journey to writing. So those are the only 3 things. And it doesn't matter if you want to look for a publisher, you want to self-publish, but before you do all that, you need to have your concept turned into a manuscript. You need to, to start writing, And this is what we're going to talk about today. So we are going to talk about conceptualization or the thought process or the planning process that goes into, a lot of people usually say, I have a story to tell or I want to write, but I don't know what to write. So the first thing is when you have a thought or when you have a story that you want to tell, I would advise, I don't usually do this myself, but I think it's very important to first think of a genre. Like you have a concept, you want to talk about abuse, you want to talk about bullying, you want to talk about, but which genre are you going to use? Because genre is very important, to know your limits, to know your bounds, to know which direction your story is going to take. It will be determined by the genre you want to, because abuse can be in a thriller, it can be in romance, it can be wherever, but how you want to put it across, how you want your concept to come alive is what is going to determine what you're going to do. So first thing is first, the genre. Read up on the genre that you want to, to write on. If you want to write on thrillers, it's always advisable to start by reading thrillers, to get an idea of what people are saying, to get an idea of how people in that particular genre are writing and what people love in that genre. I know a lot of times as African authors, we usually say writing is an art. It is, but it's also something that has to be marketable. It also has to be something that will sell or something that people will read. So for you to get an idea on what people love to read in that genre, you have to have a feel of that genre. You can't be writing young adult, but you haven't read even one young adult story, because like for instance, I'm 27, and if I'm going to write a story about teenagers today, I'll have to know what stories about teenagers today are talking about, to get a rough idea, to get, yeah. Uh, so there's that. Is there anything you want to add on genre, Nelly?
Is that Nelly?
Yeah, I think have we lost her audio again? Oh,
I see her looking on
yeah, I think we've lost her.
The voice is back.
Oh yeah, you're back. So I was saying, do you want to add anything on genre? Yeah, no. Her network is. Can you hear me, Nelly? Okay. So moving along. So once you have.
The question I have for you, Busi, is can people mix genres, or how do you go about figuring out what genre your story belongs to?
Okay, so this is difficult for me because I'm still trying to figure out where my story is right? Because I think we usually we broaden it and say African fiction, but then there's a particular, even in the fiction there are different types of fiction, and so it's always wise to read up on different fictions, to know that there's young adult, new adult, there is a contemporary romance, there's historical romance, there is what is so the difference now is how you write your story, basically. So if I'm going to talk about two people in love, but their age, if I'm writing about, let's say, Farah and Ubandi, they are young, they are teenagers, so that automatically makes it a young adult. But then it can also feature into realistic fiction, even though it's young adults, it depends on the issues I then raise. So it's always important to look up the genre and what makes up that particular genre, what you need in that particular genre. And it's always important to read around stories in that particular genre to get a feel of what they're saying, what they talk about, and all that stuff. Yeah. So we're still in the conceptualization when you have an idea and you want to grow it into a story. So as Kosi just pointed out, your story might not necessarily just fit in one genre. And if you don't know the genre, it's not a train smash, but it does help to give you a direction of where your story is going or where you want it to go. I think we've lost Uneli.
It looks like it's gone.
Yeah, we've lost her. And so once you know where your story is going, you have to decide what you want to teach, or what are you saying, or what, like, I know a lot of writers at times they just want to entertain, but how are you entertaining people? What are you teaching, and that should fall into the thought process. And I know with Mina personally, I don't write down things. Like when I'm planning, I don't really plan, but I usually have an idea of the story from the start to the finish, like where it's going, the direction I want it to take. And it might change, but then you basically need to have like a direction of saying that I want my story to go this way, I want my story to, and yeah. So the second thing is what you want to teach, because I feel like there is no idea which hasn't been written about, almost every topic under the sun. You find that there is probably going to be a story similar to what you're teaching, or what you're writing, but then now you have to pick up elements that you in particular want to talk. If you're saying you want to talk about death, what about death are you teaching people? What do you want to portray? Do you want to show widows? Do you want to show the death of young adults? Do you want to show suicide? Do you want to, so it's always important to research around your topic, like really research, go into depth, and so basically there's that, and a compound on your rough ideas. It helps to write it down. I know I don't write it down usually, but I'm just going to say do as I say, not as as I do, because once you write down, it also helps to sketch, like to say with the family tree, to write down the names of your characters, to say what part they're going to play in the book. You have your character for comical relief. Maybe you have your character for, for this is the character who shows wisdom. This is the character, this is the protagonist, this is the, all those things. So it's always important to, I know not everyone who writes would have studied writing or would have studied literature, but it helps to have like some background on knowing what a protagonist is, how to grow a protagonist, how to, an antagonistic character, everything. It's very important to like read up on those, and and then
so almost like have a family tree with who's your main character, who's going support, and then assign a role. So this is still in the concept before you even put words in the story.
Before you start writing, it's very important, because if you just go into it, like with me with the Harvard wife, I just went into it, and then at times it becomes a juggle when you now have to remember Nomsa, what role is she playing? She's the friend, but she's also this and that. So you now have to go back to the beginning and read, so that you don't mix up. So if you don't write it down, if you don't conceptualize it, you're going to take a lot of time going back and forth, trying to remember what you wrote, trying to remember who is who. And there is nothing as off-putting to a writer as reading the mix-up of names, when you're reading, this is, and I'm not saying mistakes happen, but it helps if you like write things down, and if you have all these concepts down, and then when you're continuing, it's and then what else so basically that's it on conceptualization. You have an idea, you decide which genre you want to go with, which genre are you most comfortable in, because an idea can fit into any genre. You can make it work anyway. You can make it, you can go science fiction with even polygamy or something, maybe looking at the chemical whatever, or I'm not sure. But an idea can fit into anywhere, but you are the driver. You need to, you have to be there. That's the whole reason why you conceptualize. It's more like when you're pitching a business, you have to have a business plan, So it's basically the same thing, having a business plan for your book. Know where at times you write it down, or you can have it in your head, but it helps to write it down so that you can remember, because as artists, we tend to have a lot of things. We tend to have a lot of stories going on in our minds at the same time. So it helps for you to like have a direction of saying, okay, this is how the direction is going to go. This is how I want it to go. And
okay. So it
So
doesn't
that
mean having a direction you have an ending. It just means that you know what story you're trying to tell and where you want to take the story.
yes, you have a concept, and a concept can change as you're writing. It's not like I'm saying it's now cast into stone that this is what is going to happen. Because as you write, at times you might actually decide to take on a new direction, or you might actually see things differently, and then yeah.
Okay.
So, but it helps to just have a rough idea of where you want the story to go. And that is going to be like, it's sort of going to guide you. It's going to be your guideline as you're writing. Yeah.
Okay, okay. So what's the advantage of having this family tree? Does it help so that you don't have Uzintle becoming Zanele in chapter 7?
Yes, it helps. And also it also helps you to know, with like, to structure. Yeah, it helps with the structure, because at times then you it also helps you with your timeline, because if you know ukuthi usbanibani, like Oyama was 15 when the Harvard Wife started, especially if
Yeah.
you're going to write a series. She was
Mm.
15 when the Harvard Wife started. And in Lola's heart, she's now 20, 21, 22, And so in her own story now, when I'm writing, I'm going to have to write it down. Ukuthi Oyama might be 22. She has a biological mother who is Candice, but she also has the mother who raised her, but who's not
Yes.
really biologically her mother, Umpumi. And
Mm.
also she has a stepmother, being the wife of her father, Udaniel.
Yeah.
So already that it helps me to distinguish so that I won't mix up, and I know the role which Umpumi plays in Oyama's life. I'll know the role that Candice will play in Oyama's life.
Okay.
So I already have that guideline. That's why I'm saying it's sort of a guideline. It's guiding you towards where you want your story to go, and so that you don't then go off tangent.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then what else? What else? Basically, that's it on conceptualization. I think that is it. And then there's, I said, the book title. So the book title is just as important as giving your child a name, because
Okay.
it's the first thing that will either make you or break you, because it's something that it's advisable to have a book title which is catchy, which
Yes.
people can relate to, which will draw in readers. I can
Mm.
write about the vagina, and if I say vagina, it will either have that element of shock that you want, or it can also repulse other readers. So when you're choosing a book title, you need to choose something that will draw people in, or
Okay.
have that shock value, to make, like that book which I read, The Haunted Vagina. It was like, what? And it was a book I would never have read otherwise. But then the
Mm.
title just, it just called to me. It made me curious to know what exactly is a haunted vagina. And if I feel like if the author had called it maybe Steve goes inside his girlfriend, it's like, but then that title then has that pull factor. So at
Yes.
times, you might have the title before you have the story, but
Mm.
most of the times you can actually have the title last after you have written and finished the story, and
Okay.
it's
So
always
it
important.
doesn't mean the title comes at the beginning before I have. So say I have an idea. Now I'm thinking, okay, the title will be the red table, and then I can start doing the tree and assigning roles. Or I can have an idea, assign the roles, start writing, and then at the end it's like, oh, so this is more or less about the red table. Now I can name it.
You can do both. it depends on your process as an author. I feel like we have different processes, and artists, we do things, yeah. At times some people can dream a book title, some people can, one day wake up and be like, that's my book title, and at times you're
Okay.
just walking, or at times you start with the title. And the good thing about a title, it can change as you write, but it
Mm.
helps having the title first, because how are you going to save your document? What are you going to save it as? So like with me, at times the beginning title is never ever the end title.
Yes.
Like with Fallen Candle, I'd called it Black Widow, but then somewhere along the line I felt like it wasn't an apt title. Then
Mm-hmm.
I moved to Fallen Candle, yeah.
Okay.
And then
And the
oh,
Harvard wife.
my network. Okay, so I'm back. It was
Yes.
I think it had the silver lining on a purple cloud, or was it? It was a long. It was a long, boring, boring,
Mm.
boring. So then, as I was writing, and then as I was writing, it's sort of the taunting, the towns that she got for being umfazi paper. And then I was like, okay,
Yes.
so she can be the Harvard wife. And also the fact that she sort of met her soulmate, her later husband, in
Yes.
Harvard, so it was like, yeah, I thought, yeah. So with
Right.
the
Mm.
title, you can, if you're having a hard time getting a title, it's not
Mm-hmm.
a train smash. It's not. But a title is very important as well. A thought out title and a random title, you can tell the
Mm-hmm.
difference, that this is different, so it's always good to put thought into what you're writing. Yeah.
So last question on the book title. Do you think that naming a title before you tell the story restricts you to what the story becomes versus writing a story and letting a title come up at the end?
I wouldn't say it restricts per se. I'd say that it sort of gives you a guideline as well,
Mm,
because if I'm going to call my book The Cage, you
mm,
know and then I'm asking myself, is it a metaphorical cage? Is it a literal cage? What is happening? What is the significance of the cage? So then my story must highlight that, unlike just having a random, and if I say the cage, then I start talking about, what can I say? Maybe I start talking about a borehole, or I start talking about poverty, and then
mm-hmm.
I include theft, and then at the end of the when the reader is done reading, they're confused as to what the cage had to do with the book, you know.
Yes.
So it can be a guideline to keep reminding you, which, okay, like for instance with Ufalen Kendo, I got the
Mm,
title in the middle of the book, and then once I was in the middle, I was like, oh, okay,
yeah.
so let me use metaphors around candles, light, and I sort of played around with the light and the candle
Mm,
throughout the book, with each chapter, with it. So at times that helps when you have a title and you know that, no, this is the title, and you can get metaphors, you can get similes, you can play around with the title, because you already know which, okay, this is the direction I want the story to go, and the title sort of gives credence to that.
okay.
Mhm. And also a title will also inform the book cover you choose, you know. Like if you give your story a gory, like a sort of a gory title, you know, like maybe Claude or Claude to death, and then the cover is two beds, and then people are like, okay. Or if I say Claude to death and then I show balloons and children on my book cover, and then you know, so your title will inform you on what book cover to have. It'll inform you on how your story is supposed to go, whether it's going to literally go the way your title's saying, or it's going to go the opposite direction, you know. Yeah. So
Okay.
it sort of guides you and also gives you the freedom to play around with your words. And yeah.
Okay. Awesome.
And the last is the writing process. Once you have your concept, your idea of what story you want to write, once you know would see how the title, now you get down to the writing. And a lot of I think the first mistake we do as writers is to think I'm going to write when the inspiration hits me, you know. And inspiration can take years to hit you at times. It comes and goes. So if you want to, like, especially if you want writing to be your profession, then it helps if you set up daily targets to help
Okay.
you be disciplined, you know, to say that, okay, today I'm going to write 1000 pages and 1000 words, sorry, 1000 words. So it always helps to start small and grow, you know. Or
Yes.
you can set up really huge targets, and but then it depends on what motivates you. Because if you say I'm going to start with 3500 words and then you only write 500 words, it can demotivate you, because now you're thinking, how am I going to finish this book? How am I going to, you know? And so it
Okay.
helps you start small and then increase your time as you go. You can start with, say, 500 words for today, and then the next day you can say, okay, I'm going to write 1000, and then after that 1500. And it helps to, if you set a target, to reach it in one sitting. And this is why, because at times when you're writing there and you have these ideas, it helps with your flow, the way your story flows. Because at times if you stop and then start, you might lose the flow that you had, like, originally. You now have another flow. So it helps to have your target and try to write it all in one sitting, you know. And it
I
helps
hope
also
I
to,
hope the people can still see and hear, because on my side it keeps jumbling up. Then I'm stuck. Then you're stuck. Then the screens go blank. I don't know
uh,
if in the comments, if anyone is still watching, they can tell us if the flow of the conversation is.
it's still there. Okay. No one has complained yet. Okay. So we'll pray. Let's hope that they can follow. They are following. Okay.
Okay.
What was I saying? Flow. I was talking about flow. Okay. So it helps to if you set a target, to sit down and write it in one go. You know, if you're going to say I'm going to write 500 words, choose a time when you are most productive. And people have different productivity. You know, some people are most productive in the morning, I've lost you.
No, I think I'm still there. I'm trying to see with my camera off if it doesn't take away or it doesn't become stagnant.
No, it continues.
Because you are breaking for some reason.
Yeah.
So I hear you in draps.
Oh, okay. I think it's my network.
Yeah. Okay. Continue with the flow. I'll try and sign the video back in.
Okay. Yeah, and then you have to choose what time you're most productive. For some it's at night, for some it's during the day, for some it's in the early hours of the morning. And for some people to be productive, they need total silence. Some need some music to, to spark that writing. So you have to
Okay.
know yourself. When are you most productive? When are you, and at times, even if you don't have an idea, you can just sit and make sure 500 words comes out of. You'll be surprised to know how you can force your brain to, like, because a lot of times we say I have, yeah, and yeah, some days you try and nothing will come out, but at least set those targets and try to achieve them. I think that's what has helped me a lot, especially if, like, I'm writing for Facebook and I know that I've set a timetable to say I'll write on Mondays and Wednesdays. So it helps to guide me to know, with, okay, I need to have written this amount of words by this time. So it's very important to set up targets. And then also a chapter synopsis, you know, um, because it also, this also helps with the flow of your work, to say, Wuti, okay, once you are done writing that chapter, to go back to that chapter, what are the main points, or what is the main thing that came up in that chapter. This also helps with cutting off unnecessary words, you know. So if you're going to
So
do chapters,
in terms of a structure, Busi, so now I
mm,
have a time. So say I decide every day I'll wake up at 2 a.m. I will be writing this chapter and I'm committing to, actually the question would be, and when I wake up at 2 a.m., am I committing to write a chapter that has from chapter 1 to 20? So on Monday, I woke up at 2 a.m., I wrote chapter 1. On Tuesday, I'm going to wake up at 2 a.m. and write chapter 2. Or do I just wake up and write and see where the words take me?
it depends on your process. I would advise for you to go chapter by chapter. But then there's always this thing of, when you are now editing, your editor can actually say, which, no, this happened too quickly. Instead of this happening in chapter 3, you can shift it to chapter. So if you're struggling, maybe if you're struggling with because I think it comes with a lot of discipline as well, to follow chapter by chapter, and it also comes with a lot of practice. So if you have a scene in your mind and you want to write it down, go ahead and write it down, as long as you reach your words, your 500
Okay.
words or whatever. Yeah. So it helps if you have but it also helps to, if you start from chapter 1 and you write maybe the first chapter, or you write the first words in the, like, the first half of the chapter, and then when you pick up, but it's always important to, like, don't leave a scene midway, whereby, like, you're writing and then suddenly maybe they're kicking each other, and then so now you just leave it in the middle like that. At times when you come back, you would have lost that thought process of saying, where was I going with this? Where did I want this to go? Or how was it going to go? And yeah, so it's very important to, like, I think, to have that. So a chapter synopsis also can come in with the conceptualization, when
Oh, okay.
in the first chapter, it's the introduction. How do I want this introduction to go? How am I, which direction am I going? Are they meeting? Is it boy meets girl? Is it what happens? Am I starting from the end to the beginning, or am I starting from the beginning going to the end? Which direction am I taking? So
Okay.
it helps. Yeah. Okay, what else did I write down? So I think basically everything I had written on conceptualization, thought process, and book title, I think through with it. I think I'm done. I think I'm done. But also, yeah, maybe there's some pointers which can help when you're conceptualizing to choose, and this at times is also determined by the genre, to choose which tense you're going to use. Are you going to use past tense? Are you going to use
Oh, yeah.
present? Are you going to use future? So it's determined by the genre, because if you're writing contemporary romance, it kind of makes sense to use the present tense because contemporary is in the now. And if you're going to do a historical romance, it makes sense to use the past tense, And if you're doing futuristic science, yeah, then maybe it helps to use future tense. And
Okay.
yeah. So this
So,
is
so
some of.
another question I have in terms of the process flow and you talking about timing. So, I have a timing. I already had a concept of what my chapter synopsis will be. Sticking to this routine, what would be the advantages? So, I'm thinking a lot of times, and for me, who's a Facebook reader, for example, I don't know the authors, how they go about the process. But there's times where a person will tell you, I am now a writer's block. So has this method helped you with writer's block before? Does it take it away? Does it help you keep thinking? What's are the advantages of this routine or sticking a
For
routine?
me, it's if I tell myself I'm going to write every day, right? And if today I fail, and then it's sort of like a debt I owe to myself to say, okay, today I didn't reach my target. So I have to make
Mm,
up for it tomorrow. So, and I have days I don't write every day of the week. I have like
mm,
maybe I write 5 days out of 7, and obviously it's not every day will I have inspiration, because the times when I'm flowing, I can write up to 4,000 words at one go.
mm.
Like in one sitting, I can go that. But then it helps me in days when I'm not feeling any inspiration to say, okay, just try to reach 500 to get 500 words. And, and at times, if I reach that 500, then I find, okay, the flow is also coming. It's also coming. And it helps me to, which is why I think I started writing in 2017. And, up to date, I think I've written, if I include my unpublished works,
Yes.
maybe I've written five or six books,
Mm,
and it always helps me if I have a target to say I want to reach this target. It
yes.
helps because if you always wait for inspiration might never come to you. So at times you have to force the
Mm,
inspiration. And at times, what helps is if you can't reach the inspiration to write, then maybe read. And something you read might spark some interest in you to, to write.
okay. So another thing I'm interested in is you so again for me, because on the writing process you are suggesting and talking about your advantages of the routine. You like mentioned you have multiple books, so there is, you just took out Fallen Candle, so now we had Fallen Candle. You then had Lola's Heart at the same time, and then you also have a Facebook story. So did you then decide on week 1 of the month of March, I'm going to write Lola's Heart? Or in week 2, or on day 3, it depends on which character comes up and wants to be written. So there are people that say a routine works, and I think this is where I'm getting to. So there are people that say a routine works because it means I keep practicing, just like any muscle in the body. I practice my writing muscle on a daily basis. And then there's people who say I'm not going to touch a pen or a keypad until creativity strikes. So you then are the hard and overachiever that then has come up with 2 books and a Facebook story at the, well, more or less parallel times. Which one came on which day?
Okay, so basically, like I have writing days on Facebook. I know I'm going to write Monday and Wednesday. And so usually I write the story a day before or the morning, the early morning, And so if I know the Facebook story needs so it's going to take 2 days of my week, writing
Okay.
that Facebook story. And then so on days when I get stuck on, maybe I get stuck on Istor Saga Oyama, I'll go back to Esegavimbai, but I always make sure Uguti I write at least 1 chapter a week for each of the story, So, and how I alternate between the two. So when you can reach a dead end with 1 story, and then I move on to the other to see if maybe that will trigger me to write. So basically, with the Facebook stories, it helps that I also set a schedule for myself, and always, all the time, Facebook Facebook readers will remind you, would say, you said this, and that, I think that is where I got my discipline for writing from, because I always, and some people used to laugh at me, would you actually treat this as a job? If you're not writing today, you apologize and ask for another day. I'm like, it's sort of like I'm an assignment. Yeah, take for instance assignments when you're in school or when you're in college and you have those assignments. I was one of those people who pushed assignments to the last minute, But what I would do is I would do my research before writing. So I would do my research, and then last minute I write. So I still do that even with writing. I basically I research, like if I know what the next chapter I'm going to be writing about a court case, or I'm going to be writing about murder or whatever, I do my research first, and then I put it aside. But I already, either I take screenshots or I copy and paste or whatever I do, but my research is there, it's ready for the week.
Okay.
So if I know what's in Oyama's story, I want to talk about the hospital, I'll put it aside to know, okay, so this is the hospital, which nursing hospitals are they, which teaching hospitals, and then I put them aside. And then I also figure out the distance, which makes more sense, which makes more, and that's, yeah. And then I also, if I'm going to, it's a lot of work. So I do the research and I put it aside. Then I'll know, okay, Monday I have to write Istora Sagavimbai because people want it, So I write it, and then on Tuesday I alternate, and then I go to Oyama's story, And then Wednesday I go back to Vimbai story, and then I keep on. But because at times one story might then suffer rather than the other, there's always that. So that's where inspiration strikes. But I'm always writing, like almost every day I'm always writing. And at times social media takes up some of my time. So at times I force myself to log out of Facebook so that I don't get any notifications, I don't get anything. I just, and whenever I
think
get
this brings about Yes. So this brings about the importance then of then having those ideas, breaking them down, and really making up what you call the family tree, because I don't know how I would remember which character needs what, where do they fit in, what's their role, and then have to go on a Tuesday and research about that particular character or that concept, and then go back tomorrow and then remember that now I'm researching about Gaise, and then tomorrow I must research about what Lola's issues were. So really, this is more than just drawing up a tree on a page. It means that I actually need a book that covers the flow of each character as much as the flow of the whole story.
Yeah. So it's that is why I was stressing on conceptualization, because once you have the concept,
Mm,
and this also helps you to not write about the same issues in both books, or in all the books you're writing about, because you have a clear distinction of where this story is going, where is that one going, and where is. So it's very important. I'm not much of a planner as well. I struggle with planning, but I do try as much as possible. Like right now, I
mm,
already know Uti Story Sagafara, how I want when I'm publishing it. I know
yeah.
which way I'm going to go. Some days when I'm just thinking of the story, I take out my phone, I go to notes, and I start writing with, okay, so this is how it's going to go. This is how I'm going to
Mm,
break it down. And I might not start writing it there and then because I'm not writing it now. But whenever a thought strikes, I write it down so
mm.
that when I'm now writing, I go back to my notes, and
Oh,
that's
okay.
helped me. That helps me to say, oh, okay, this is what I thought of. Okay, so let me. So it's very important to at least have a rough idea, write notes. Don't just, and of course there are some people who just get into writing and it works for them and it flows.
Mm-hmm.
Big up to you. But it helps with and I did that with the Harvard wife, but now I find that the more I grow, the more structure is important to me as an author, and it makes my writing life easier to put structure into everything. Yeah.
Awesome, awesome. I'm imagining you have this book, a Bible of all your characters and the flow, or do you use like an Excel spreadsheet and like on tab one we have this person and on tab two there's someone else. But I think your
Okay.
mind is amazing. But at the end of the day, even if I wanted to be a writer, this sounds like a full-time job.
It is. It is. So we have a question. Okay, so Tinka is asking, how do you keep track of your storyline to ensure that you don't mix up characters, events, and
Mm,
timelines?
yes.
Yeah, that's when the conceptualization. So I don't have a book or a Bible as you said. But I'm actually thinking of Excel. I think Excel will help me a lot. But
Mm,
usually I use my notes, like Samsung notes, you know, to say what's okay. Like when I was starting with Ilola's story, I actually have notes on Lola to say, okay, Ulola Genje, who are her biological parents? The
mm,
biological parents were Joseph and her mother. And who did she grow up with? She grew up with her Mima, and she grew up with her uncle. And then who did she meet after? And then, so then now the timeline has to make sense to say, okay, so her
mm.
parents died at this point. And when they died, they had already met Umpumi. So then this is how they meet. And this is how some of my stories end up overlapping each other, because I have a timeline, and the timeline, the way it works for each story, then it sort of blends into the other story as well. So
Okay.
that like helps a lot. So I'd say plan, like writing is a full-time job. It's like, and I know a lot of people will not say it, and maybe some people, for them it just happens. But if you want to make it a career, or if you want to make it not just a
Mm,
one-time thing, and then you have to have the discipline to plan. You have to have the discipline to follow through on what you've planned, to know what's okay. this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to force myself. I'm going to, yeah. So it helps to not mix. And actually, I have so many characters. And with history, like history saga Bimbai, yeah, no, the story is giving me hell at times because I have to go back and remember, okay, Urubi is who is she dating? Who is so and so dating? Who is, yeah. How do I ensure that the reader's emotions and opinions don't affect the story when writing on Facebook? Well, because I already have the storyline. Like I already like this is me. I already have where I know where the story is going to go before I even start writing. I know what's okay if I'm saying sunshine and shadows, what are the sunshine? What is the shadows?
Yes.
I already have the concept, even though it's not written down, even though I write it day by day as I post. But I already have maybe a rough idea. And yes, at times, especially with Facebook's readers, a lot of them are bullies. Yo, hayi shem bazokuthuka ungabulala umuntu bazokuthuka bakuthuke, and if you're weak you end up succumbing. But
Yes.
I always make sure that if I have a storyline, if I'm, of course it might change, but I do not deviate from my original story, where it's going to go, because readers can only see as far as you give them. So if they're looking at where you're going, but when you know the end you're driving at, you know that this is okay, this is where the story is going to go. But one thing I love about Facebook is the interaction. At times someone might actually raise a point that you had forgotten, like something you'd written in the previous chapter, and that could actually inform the other chapters. And I'm blessed with readers who actually write really long paragraphs breaking down the story. So at times, when I'm reading the story, I'm like, whoo, Kenji, yo, okay. So then I go back. But then basically the concept never changes for me. So it helps that I already have the story in my head. I already know. So it might change here and there, but then the outcome will be the same. Yeah.
Okay, I love this next question. Do you
Yeah.
reread your stories and feel the same way you make us feel all emotional? Thank you, Vimbai. I have the same issues.
Okay, so my emotions are a bit, I think I'm wired differently when it comes to being emotional. But yes, at times I can read through, like, especially with Facebook notifications, when someone comments on maybe a chapter that you wrote maybe 2 weeks ago, and then you're reading it, and then you're like, oh wow, this is really painful. This is okay. So there are some chapters which trigger me, and usually I when I'm now rereading the story, I cruise through them because I'm not as strong as I put out. So, but basically, yes, there are some things which I get over, and yeah, like
Okay.
yeah, because it hurts.
All right. So we covered a lot. We spoke about the idea itself, but I think there's more. We spoke about the title, and I'm sure people will have more questions about it. Do I choose? When do I just decide to name it after a character versus naming it after the concept or the genre I want to attract my audience from? And now the idea of having a writing scene, and it helps people understand the writing process itself, but it doesn't that what I wrote on Monday at 2 o'clock actually makes sense and is worthy of being a published book. So at what point are you going to tell us more of these stories? So are we going to have these lives every week? Then, next day.
Okay, so originally
yeah, you're on the right track.
Okay, so basically, this was supposed to be with 10 other people. There were supposed to be 10 of us, with people asking questions, and unfortunately, the people didn't log in. They didn't, and some had issues with their network, like Umine, and Uneli. So then, but basically, I would love to, going forward, to have more structured, maybe seminars or more structured webinars, and say, yeah. But then I'd have to really structure them and sit down and do some research as well and see what helps, see what. So, yeah, maybe next year. Maybe next year. Hey, kid December. Yo, Lena, I must rest. I must because yeah, this year has been hectic. It has been
Yes.
a long year. I've been all over the place. I've been doing this and that. I've been trying this and that. Some of it has worked, some of it has not. But yeah. So maybe next year we can do a series of this. I feel like, yeah, what do people think? They can tell us in the comment section if they think this has been helpful, if they think they would like more of this, if they're
Yes.
interested. They can let us know in the comment sections to know that. Because I feel like if I had someone telling me all this when I started writing, I would have
Yes.
benefited a lot from it, And there's things that I'm still learning and unlearning as I go. And it's not as cutthroat. Yes, I also have writer's block. I also have days when writing doesn't make sense. I have times when, yeah. And so there are times when I fight with my editor. Yeah. And yeah, so writing is actually a lonely process, really, because you're there, you're in your head, you have to put down those ideas, think about whether they'll be acceptable or not to people, think about, yeah, a lot of things. So yes, I would like to do a series of this, but maybe next year, and it would have to be structured right and packaged in a way that will be most helpful, and I'd have to have a laptop, Wi-Fi, and the
Yes.
works, the works. So yes, I think we can do this. Can do it now. Can
So
do it.
now, are you planning these things to be live? Because sometimes we can't see pictures on post because, like, we're on free mode. So you can imagine us going to sit in a 1 hour's online thing. But obviously, with the current conditions, you are looking at doing online seminars or workshops
Yeah.
that are more detailed. But are you ever planning to live ones, like we sit in a classroom and we practice writing?
Yeah, I think as soon as Corona is, because this year, that's why I didn't even have a book launch for both my books. I didn't have a physical launch because I tried getting a venue. I tried, and it's very hard right now with the restrictions. The number of people are restricted. But I would like to have like intimate classes. Maybe we'll start with 10 or 15 and then gradually work our way up. So obviously, then those would need money for venue, for it, and all that stuff. So I would have to, yeah, people are willing to do paid things. Then yeah, we can go for it. Come next year, and hopefully Corona would have abated a bit. But if it hasn't, we'll start with those online ones, and we'll look for sites which will be more interactive and more, where I won't have to do it live on Facebook like this. So we can do it live on Facebook, whichever. We can do it in a group setting. We can do it. And Longfellow says this is really helpful. I would love to see more of this sessions. Thank you. Oh, thank you. I'm glad I helped. So yeah.
So I think for me, Nomvelo, I would like to know, when you say more of these sessions, is it more of general sessions? Is it particular topics? it helps the person structure what they actually talk about and what is in
Yeah.
need, you know.
Yeah.
There's different things that come on demand as far as writing is concerned.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
a whole book on its own, and there are many books. But to make it as practical as possible, um, I suppose you would have to then consider running us through the whole concept from how do you even think about conceptualization? How do you even play around with book titles? And what then goes into each writing or step process?
Mm, mm, mm. Yeah, I think yeah, it would help like if the people who are watching this, if they're aspiring writers, if they're writers and they have questions that they want answered, it would help. It will help me in planning the future sessions, I think. Because this is why I only chose like three, and out of those three, I didn't want to go into the whole, do you want to self-publish? Do you want to traditional? Because that is like basically the last question you ask yourself when when you're done with your manuscript. When you're done, and there is a lot that actually goes into writing the manuscript in the first place. There's like a whole lot of things. Like you're saying, how do you come up with the concept? Because I feel like you shouldn't just consider writing for just the fun of writing or just because you love writing. You want to write stories that have an impact, or you want to write stories that will entertain people. You want to write stories that can be turned into movies. You want to write stories which will remain in readers' minds. You want to write stories which reflect or represent a certain type of people or whatever, and so it's very necessary to think about all this before you even write, before you even
Mm-hmm.
write. And this is why I always hate the question, I want to write, like, okay, where do I even start? Because there is so much that goes into writing. There is so much that goes into writing, from the planning to the inception to the book actually now feeling the book in your hands. There's a whole lot that goes into it.
Mm.
And so,
Awesome, awesome. Okay, so any info so people will know how to reach out, how to tell you the needs, so that it can help you conceptualize your workshops going forward. Um, how
yeah, I
then do
think.
they touch with you, and when do we know when the workshops will start?
Okay, so they can inbox me, send me messages on Facebook, Instagram, or an email at nicolekhumalo@gmail.com.
Yeah.
NICHOL, yeah. Yeah, khumalo@gmail.com. So just send me a text with what you would like to see in those workshops going forward, what you think you would benefit most from if there was to be a workshop. Yeah, and yeah, then we'll take it from there. And if there ever is a workshop, obviously I'll post it on all my social media, from my WhatsApp
Mm-hmm.
to my, yeah. I'm currently writing a book and I really don't have much idea when it comes to publishing, sticking to a storyline. I love writing, but I need a lot of guidance. But my writing is more of essay, memoir type of writing because I'm not as creative. I think the fact that you actually write is creation on its own. For the words to go into your mind and then you actually put them down, that is creation on its own. And so I'm not sure what you'd like me to help you with. Yeah, so you can inbox me whatever questions then you'd need. Yeah, and then we can go from there, and I can see if we can actually make this, because I don't know anything about writing memoirs. I can try to reach out to authors who've written memoirs to help and
Mm-hmm.
to, yeah, you know. So, yeah. I'd have
All
to
right.
structure.
So lastly, while we wait for you to decide what goes into a workshop or a seminar, webinar, when are you going to start with the classes, whether it's online or face to face? Do you still offer one-on-one coaching for people who say, I can't wait for a group thing? I have this idea that's haunting me every night, and I need, like Unomvelo says, I have this idea. I don't know what's the first thing to do with publishing. I don't know how to stick to a storyline. So do you offer services, obviously paid, to then help coach somebody through the process individually as much as you intend to do it in a group?
Okay, so I wouldn't mind doing that. But obviously because it would take time, it would, take. So if someone wants a one-on-one, then yes, we can set up one-on-ones, and then that have to be paid, and then yeah, I think because it's taxing, like, and I feel like people don't appreciate how taxing it is to actually
Mm-hmm.
advise someone. Because there was this one person who asked me. They said they want to start a publishing company. The person asked me questions for 3 straight hours, like 3 hours, and that was
Mm.
like for free. And then I'm going back and forth with this person, and then they actually did. They started their company, and I'm just here like, oh, okay. So yeah, no. If someone wants the one-on-one, they can also inbox me, and then we'll figure out what to do. Yeah, I think I'm ready now. I've been putting it off, but yeah,
Mm-hmm.
then you can start. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So please, as you continue with your structured writing process of your how many words and how many hours, please add us to the structure of your day and commit how many hours you're going to dedicate to or coaching one-on-one should there be customers, and when you're going to then set time for actually getting those workshops out there. And I personally would like to thank you for the information shared today. And I see some of the people reflecting my thoughts in the comments.
Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you.
And get ready for those expenses.
Actually, I was nervous about this because I think I'm also in the process of growing as an author, and the process of self-doubt. Thinking, am I good enough to even actually teach other people? Am I ready? Am I? But as you're asking those questions, and as I was answering, and as people are commenting, I feel like, yeah, maybe I'm ready, and we can grow together. There will never be a right time, I think. So, yeah. Thank you so much for your questions. Thank you for engaging me. And thank you to everyone who tuned in from beginning to end. And I look forward to your questions. What would you look forward to learn about writing? Yeah, so bye. Okay, let's end this. Can we end it? Is there anything you want to add?
Okay. Bye, everybody. Like
Bye.
anytime, me, I like asking questions. So, yeah, I'm here for it. I'm here for it.